Hello, welcome back to the Celts Are Here podcast. It's your usual host. It's becoming a wee bit of a regular double team this, Quinny. It's myself, Declan McConvo, and Quinny here, and we're going to be previewing the game in 2 days' time. Celtic are back in competitive action, Quinny. In 2 games' time, we don't need to moan about banners anymore. We can moan about the competitive football in the park. I'm really excited for this, I hope, and I think probably you are too.
Oh yeah, I'm buzzing. I've been waiting for this. I think since last game of the season. Who was it we had? Was it Motherwell?
Motherwell.
Yeah. So I think I think we've all been waiting for this season really since. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, winning the league last year had to get done first of all. But I get this kind of sense for me anyway, and maybe the kind of wider fan base that we were already getting really excited for seeing a lot of these guys properly bed in, and how can we make the team stronger, especially the manager's kind of statements end the season. Like we never stop and all that. So yeah, it feels like eternity, but we're finally here. We're on the cusp of it, 2 days away.
Yeah, 2 days away. Yeah, kind of, and the manager that right away before we even lifted that league title. I think even in that moment we're kind of looking forward to next season when he's talking about coming back, being bigger, better, stronger. You had all the stuff from Aussie journalists last year saying it takes Ange Postecoglou into the second season for his Celtic team, or sorry, not his Celtic team, for any of his teams to do well. From what we've achieved in the first season to the next, I'm just really, really excited, and I think it's also been a bit different, the circumstances, because we've not had those Champions League qualifiers, and it's been a bit weird for me because I've been used to kind of growing up seeing near beat on at centre half, seeing a Celtic player get sent off for something daft, and
Yeah,
then biting my nails as we play Hapoel Beersheba or Astana or somebody.
that's it. Well, I think Celtic fans over the last 10 years know European geography really, really well, probably better than most fans in Europe, just with some of the draws we've had.
But it's good that we've got that out of the way. But we've not had
Yeah, for
that
sure.
to worry about because already I think a couple of seasons back you go into them and you start losing players already. I know we're already a couple of guys down for Sunday. We'll come on to that, but it's just been one thing less to worry about, and it means that we can moan about the other stuff, kiosk prices and banners outside the ground, which everybody, by the way, has their absolute right to moan about, because I wouldn't make myself be paying that price for a packet of wine gums. I think it'll be Morrison's or Asda a couple of days in the run up before the game for them. So, kind of the first thing to touch on, I think, you know, Sunday is going to be a big celebration of last season's success, but also in a way, I think it's going to be a success of Callum McGregor's captaincy at Celtic.
Yep.
He's been asked to unfurl the flag. This is a good call, this one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Like McGregor, made some really good statements right after Tierney left about oh, I'll be, I'm here forever. Celtic's my dream since I was a boy, kind of idea. And it's great to see him not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. He was a fantastic captain last year, and I'm 34 now. I have to think there, sorry. And I just about missed remembering properly Paul McStay, and that's somebody that my family hold in a really high regard. And I feel like this generation of Celtic fans, and I include myself in that, McGregor's our McStay almost.
Yeah, I understand that. And again, before the comments probably erupt and saying, he's not going to the football player or next day or something. I think in terms of everything he gives to the club, the way he leads the team in the park, like Paul McStay did in those years, those barren years, Cam McGregor's been an outstanding captain. I was having a wee look this morning, 17 major honours for Celtic at 29. It could actually be quite frightening what he ends up with by the end, and appearances, because you and I both know too well he puts in some shift every season, doesn't he?
Yeah, big time. And I seen he did a Q&A on Twitter yesterday, and a lot of the questions are going around that mask. And, the mask, as much as it's became a wee bit of a trope or whatever, it's a real testament to him. You know what I mean? Straight away, he's like, I'll do anything to play. It was a fractured cheekbone or something like that, or an eye socket or something funky.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, all players wear masks and helmets and stuff like that these days, but normally, they maybe take a week or something to rehab, but he was straight away, get me on the back on the pitch kind of thing. And yeah, that's really a testament to what you're talking about. He is battle hungry. He's not shy of getting in amongst it. He's not shy of talking to refs. And one of everyone's favourite bits of last season was that clip of him chasing Barisic. I don't need to repeat what he was shouting at him. Everyone I'm sure will know what I'm referring
Everybody
to.
will know what it is. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just everyone that makes even now when I'm thinking about it, it raises your heart. Yeah, you know, it gets you excited. You're like, yeah, that's my guy. That's McGregor. You know, like chasing around Rangers
Yeah,
players. But like,
I even found myself in a seat standing up at Tannadice the night we won the league when he was over, and he was absolutely giving it loudy, and everybody
brilliant.
beside me, including myself, was giving it loudy back to him because you could see how much it meant to him. I think, and the emotion, as well as that, it was one of those guys, very few of them that had experienced the season before, and had been at the very core of that Celtic team. And I think at times, as much as we didn't want to, have as bad a season as we did the year before it, that can make you even more hungry to go and get success because you've hit the lows. Callum McGregor's Celtic career up until that point had been full of success. Came in under Ronnie. I know you're wearing is that your New York City kind of
Aye.
shirt we got on there.
Yeah.
Came in under Ronnie. Countless league titles. I think he's won 7 league titles as a Celtic player. One
Yep.
as captain. And you could just see how much it meant to him last season. And I think again, it's so important to have a guy like that at the heart of your dressing room, good forward for Celtic.
Big time, yeah. I think he's going to have a great season this year. And you know, when I've been talking to people around kind of fantasy football circles and whatever, like McGregor is like the most like nailed on player in the team. Like even though the manager will rest and
It's in
rotate, and
mine.
yeah, he's got to play 98% of matches probably. You know,
Yeah, and you can always trust him for an assist or, quite quite high scores, because he just, he's Mr. Reliable. He's always consistent. And then I kind of describe him as Celtic's metronome in there. That he just makes everything tick, tick, tick. So, yeah,
but
but well done to him. I'm sure it'll be a special day for himself, his family, and whatnot. But again, I had a look at his comments in the press yesterday, and he was saying that once the flag's unfurled, that's it. We just look in this season, but we're not looking backwards. And I think that's also important because as a new group, which that Celtic team really is, it's not evolved anywhere near what you'll expect it to do so. But as a new group, it's probably very easily to get away from yourself and think, okay, we've been there, we've done it, we've won the league, we can kind of sit back now. Whereas Callum McGregor knows that, it's not what you do in the past at Celtic, it's all about the current day, like, that famous Jock Stein quote about, don't basically rest in your past, we can build up new heroes here at Celtic Park.
that's it. And I think like that's the danger with the Scottish League when you're at Celtic and Rangers is like there is like confidence can be dangerous, you know, for some teams. And I guess we've maybe seen a bit of that with Rangers last year. Like they just wrote everything off from us last year, and I think they were saying they won the league by like December and stuff like that. You know, it was so in Glasgow in particular for Celtic and Rangers, like overconfidence can be dangerous. And McGregor's been around the block too many times to let some of these new kids on the block that will, you know, like Celtic's such a special club. Like, you know, when we see all these international players coming in, Kyogo Jota or whatever, the main thing, like, yes, European football is nice. Yes, I'm sure they're paid well, but like this club is like different to so many around the world, you know. And if you know other clubs of that kind of stature in their own kind of domestic leagues or whatever, it's not the same as Celtic in terms of what you get from the fans and from the club and whatever. So these players, like, it's one of these things they need to guard against, like enjoying it all, the fanfare. You know, we put them up as like idols. You know, I see all the stuff on the internet as much as everyone else. Everyone's getting excited, and it's about those hard heads like McGregor, even Joe Hart as well. I know he's not been in Scotland terribly long, you know, but he knows his way around a trophy. Let's say, is what's going to be the difference because early season having that mentality is champion mentality. You know.
Yeah, I think kind of looking back maybe over the past 20 odd years, I'm kind of hoping for something similar to that 2001-2 season, which you'll remember a lot better than me.
Yeah.
When obviously Celtic had won the treble under Martin the first season. They turned over that big, I think it was 21-point deficit they'd had the season previous to that at Rangers. They'd absolutely battered them in one of the Derby games 6-2. Then you go into the second season, and right away, people, football can be a cruel game. I think Gordon Strachan always used to say you're 3 draws away from a disaster at
Yeah.
Celtic, which is reality. You know what I mean? Although everybody will praise and, give Ange Postecoglou, every, praise towards him currently. If things start to go badly, you and I know the environment at Celtic's like, the press will turn and whatever else. Probably not the Celtic support, but and that's why I think it's important that the second season is probably where he's going to be judged a lot from maybe Celtic fans' perspectives on it. And again, I expect him to deliver because just from everything I've read, we can only read so much. But his track record on it is there for all to see that in the second season it does happen. He turned around the fortunes of a team like Yokohama in the J League.
Yep.
He turned around the fortunes of Celtic instantly. and expecting his second season for Celtic to be a completely different team, because we won't have. I don't expect us to have the issues like we did at the start of last season.
I totally agree. And I think one of the things that we get from Postecoglou is like what's going on in modern football now at the elite level is that, managers not necessarily need to be babysitters, but they really need to manage people much better. They can't just be, take no prisoners football coach and it's my way or the highway, run up the hill as fast as you can, as quick as you can, kind of idea. And, that kind of culture that we've got in the club, like when times do get hard, it's the make or break of most managers, particularly in the old firm, is if the players like still keep going, because we've had some bad results in Europe over the years in particular, and we've had some shaky spells domestically. But when you see the players are just not at it, that's when the pressure really gets turned up. And I don't think, I agree with you, I don't think the fans would take a lot to kind of put pressure on Postecoglou. But I think the players make his job so much easier because I think all of them are bought into him. And we were kind of chatting about that last week, that on that same note you were talking there, that we've not really seen this group properly gelled yet. They are still quite a newly formed bunch, as well as that kind of whole, like, Tati last year, he's like, you'll keep playing. I don't care if you look tired, you will keep playing because this is Celtic and that's what you need to do. And that kind of attitude, as well as a lot of the obvious rotations he does, you can tell everyone who is going to be in the squad, if they're going to play 5 games, they're on board with that and they'll give everything for their 5 starts and then their 10 sub appearances or whatever. So I think we've got that stuff going for us.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things we spoke about last week with the couple of boys that came on against Motherwell, just to try and get them that league winners medal, because they obviously thought they played their part to deserve that. So, yeah, I think that's a big part of it too. That there is a real belief in the squad and a unity and togetherness, which is, something that's completely in contrast to the situation that we found ourselves in.
Totally.
And even going back to Callum McGregor, I watched the interview that Peter Martin did with PLZ Soccer with Neil Lennon a couple of months back, and he actually said in the interview, Neil Lennon, that he felt sorry for Callum McGregor in that season, which I thought was a bit kind of startling back, that, he was definitely one of the guys that was giving his all in that season, and just what was happening round about him and everything else externally from, within the club just wasn't going his way. But he's turned that around, and it's going to be probably one that Celtic are noting down for a DVD in the future, the Callum McGregor DVD, because we don't get them. I mean, actually, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and kind of, if you think back 20 years, as I say, that I don't want to keep putting our ages up against each other, but I was kind of only, I was 4 when Martin O'Neill left Celtic, so that kind of generation. But I've got all this stuff, and if you think what came out, you had a John Hartson DVD, a Henrik DVD, a Lubo one, a Sutton one, Road to Seville. There was everything. So I'm sure Celtic are taking notes at this point in time for a Callum McGregor DVD, because listen, I think we'd all probably want to watch it, because it's a great story to tell, just everything that he's been through, and then that complete turnaround, and he really showed his bottle and everything that he's got about himself. So yeah, moving on from Callum, Celtic Park sold out again. I think the only disappointment with this, Quinny, is the kick-off time, because I was looking at this the other day. I was doing an article on Celtic here, and the last boat, just to kind of take the Irish supporters to one side in this, they'll miss the boat, which I think is 2 hours, 3 hours after the kick-off time, just due to the time it would take to get away from Celtic Park. They need to leave at half time or something. Wow. So the last boat that they can get, and the only boat they can get, is at 11 o'clock at night, which doesn't get you back to Ireland until 1:45 or something in Belfast, which is absolutely mental.
Yeah, that's a tough one for sure. Why is it Sunday at 4:30? Is it TV? I'm guessing.
I think it's TV, but the Women's World Cup finals at 4 o'clock. So even if they're trying to attract a crowd by putting a Scottish Premiership league opener on at 4:30, a lot of viewers will probably tune into the Women's World Cup if they've been following it or whatnot, and it's on BBC type thing. If you're going to try and get viewers apart from maybe Celtic, Aberdeen fans, and maybe some fans of Scottish football. So it's a really strange one. And then there's obviously the train disruption, which, by the way, isn't anything to do with strikes at this point in time. It's just a normal service running from ScotRail. The staff shortages, and again, surely that was something that the league, SPFL, and looked at before they had any iota how this scheduling would work, because surely the champions should kick off the season.
Yeah, well, that was my, I say I didn't remember. I don't know for facts. I didn't want to say it, but yeah, I was pretty sure. Flag Day is pretty much the first game of the season. World Cup style, the host always plays the first game. Kind of idea. So I did find it odd. I thought I just assumed it was TV related and kind of forgot about it. I don't even think about people coming over from Ireland and all that kind of stuff because, yeah, like the Sunday half 4-1 is difficult. It's just right smack in the middle of the day. I never really paid it too much attention. I'm sorry, beyond just my own weekend schedule. I've just not had to think about that kind of stuff for myself. So yeah, that's definitely kicking the balls.
Yeah, but hopefully it doesn't disrupt people. Maybe probably half four is easier to get to for some than maybe 12:30. But I think that the Saturday game should have been Celtic kicking off the season right away. I know obviously Livingston Rangers, I think it's a game on TV on a Saturday, but surely it should be the league winners because I think actually back in correct me if I'm wrong, 2016 we kicked off the season at Tynecastle in the first game. Scott Sinclair scored that goal at the very end,
Yeah,
and we
yeah,
had to actually lift the league flag against Lincoln Red Imps
that
in
rings a
a
bell.
Champions League qualifier. So
That rings a
a
bell.
bit strange again. All this nonsense about super duper computers. I don't think there's any super duper computer. It's somebody in a room pointing to wherever and coming up with a fantasy time with the SPFL and Sky Sports. So yeah, we'll move on for that. But yeah, the new season. Just to kind of to ask you, what is your hopes for this season? Because I think I went in to last season not worried. Obviously, I always expect from Celtic, but it was kind of the unknown, and it was always for me the unknown right away with Ange Postecoglou. But now we see the football that we play, we've seen the success that he's brought to the club. I think that the overall kind of feeling is just excitement.
Yeah, excitement from top to bottom. I think from everywhere. Like obviously, like a lot of people I generally talk to are from different parts of the world or whatever, and there'll definitely be a lot of new Celtic fans this season, kind of tuning in. There'll be a lot of extra kind of expectation. We've also got a huge kind of fan base now in Australia and reignited the one in Japan recently, of course. But for me personally, like I think the league is an obvious expectation. I think like I don't want to go down this digression too much because it's a painful one, but like I didn't really rate that Rangers team that stopped us that won the league the year before last, and I didn't think it would take that much to really make it competitive last year. And this season, like my opinion hasn't really changed too much. I know they had a good Europa League run. I was actually bumped into like one of my best mates that I've not seen in years the day before yesterday. He's a really big Rangers fan. And I've seen to him that Europa League run for me, right? And I watch a lot of football. I watch a lot of German football in particular, right? I wasn't impressed by their run except for the Leipzig fixture. I thought Leipzig is the only game that they actually, don't get me wrong, they performed admirably in the final, but like the Leipzig fixture was the only one that I thought that's a scalp. They've done really well there. Anyway, point being, I don't think they've got much better. I see them online talking about I've signed this one and that one and whatever. I don't see it. I think as long as, and again, the manager's focus, the team's focus is not going to be on Rangers necessarily. It's all about us being as good as we can every week. And I think, the league is almost, one of these things that as long as we do the manager's orders and we follow on the trend that we have been going on, I think expecting the league isn't too much of a stretch. What I would really like to see is some Champions League 3-pointers.
Yeah, that'd be very nice. The other night there, because I'm just getting up here, because Olympiacos get knocked out the Champions League.
Seen that.
It was one of the Israeli teams that knocked them out. Celtic will get an extra 900,000 euros, I think,
Yep.
because of the way the coefficient works. So again, that's another nice wee bonus just in that. But again, that's just Celtic getting lucky in
Yeah.
terms of that. That's not the 3-pointers, and obviously the money that also comes with those 3-pointers in the Champions League win is crucial because goals, 3 points, and whatnot all count towards it. I think there's a lot in what you say there, in that it's just about focusing on yourself. And if I go
Yep.
back to last season, that Hearts game, Livingston, Dundee United at home. I think there was times you probably looked at that Celtic team and thought, is this going to turn for us here? I fully went up to Pittodrie that day expecting us to win, and we did win 2-1, but that was the major turning point for us. I don't doubt that at all. And I just don't think that we're going to have those issues along the way at the start of the season like we did last year. And we've also, I think, proved ourselves in the derby games, especially in the league. And obviously, extra time went last season, we get put out in the semi-finals. But if you look at the derby games, the first one we went to Ibrox, we know Celtic fans there, but first experience for a lot of the players, and we very unlucky, I think, not to get a draw. Two players playing in there, Ryan Christie and Elston Edward, who were fast out the door within
Yep.
the next 2 days. Battered Rangers 3-0 at Celtic Park. I don't see a result probably like that happening again, although it could happen again. You don't know. Wayne Ibrox got the win, and in a game that we didn't really need to win, we just didn't need to get beat, but we drew 1-1. So even I think in that, we've kind of got a wee bit the upper hand in the derby games, and I've heard a lot of pundits say that the 12 points over the course of the season could be what dictates the league. But in terms of that, I just see Celtic as the far superior sides in those fixtures, and I don't see Celtic having the issues that they did at the start of the season.
Yeah, I would. I don't know if saying the old firms would decide the league because Van Bronckhorst didn't really cover himself in glory last year domestically. He kind of lived off a Gerrard start to the run. So I don't know. I think the jury's still out on how competitive Van Bronckhorst will have them in that sense. And I think with the signings, don't get me wrong, I think the left back, the centre back that they got that we wanted a year ago, Davis.
Indeed. Mm-hmm.
I think he's probably the best defender they've had in about since they've been back. Basically, I think he is a good player, quite notably. But beyond that, and again, the kind of caliber of the opposition that we've got, and generally the SPL and Rangers kind of embodied this, especially under Gerrard. There's a lot of the guys that are snapping up that are better players. Generally, are high-end League One, mid-level Championship kind of players. And in Scotland, those guys can be really good. We've done well with Chris Commons and Gary Hooper and whatever in the past. It's just the standard of the football, if that makes sense. But the standard of the players we have are and I hate to say this because it's quite cliche, right? But they're international quality. Like Kyogo. I was talking to actually a good friend of mine that knows some people around the Celtic community and whatever, and he's convinced. This is just a real side note, but he's convinced that Kyogo is destined for Man United or something like that.
Yeah, he could play at the top level.
I don't know.
McGregor could have, but obviously I don't ever think that McGregor will check out. But I think at this point in time, had he did an Edward or but Tierney did a few years back, I think he could have been at the very top level English football. And like you say, I think Celtic. I think if you look at Saturday, for instance, last week against Norwich, no, it's a friendly game, but Norwich for me played a pretty strong team. They were a Premier League team last season. Dean Smith comes out and he says that we're a Premier League team in the meeting, which I think was a bit strange to say. But, the guys up front for Norwich had signed in the wings £8-9 million. They were absolutely nowhere near a Kyogo or Maeda, which, I think there's a real point in what you say there about recruitment. You can look at other leagues and think, yes, they'll improve us, yes, they'll play at this level, but the guys we have got, just to me, seem to just take that wee bit of standard up from maybe other signings that we probably made a few seasons back.
Agreed. Again, probably Scott Sinclair maybe falls into that category. Again, big fan of Scott Sinclair, but I think Jota, Kyogo, Maeda, even O'Reilly and Hatate, these guys are when they leave Celtic, they're not going to go Christie leaves Celtic, goes to Bournemouth. When these guys leave us, they will be going somewhere pretty decent. And I think that kind of caliber in the squad is something that we've not really had properly, maybe in a few small spells, but the first team you referenced there, the 0203 team, that team was covered in guys that if they ever wanted to leave us, they could have went, a lot of different places. And obviously they did for the large part.
Yeah, team of big players, and hopefully, Celtic can get anywhere near the repeating their feat then would be absolutely fantastic. But in terms of the team on Sunday, maybe there will be a wee bit of headache in some positions, but for me, some are pretty covered. In terms of right back first, I think Ralston's probably had the better pre-season, but surely you need to go with the quality of Juranovic, and maybe we're just getting back into the swing of things and into the rhythm of the game. And I'd fully expect the manager to pick Josip Juranovic at right back on Sunday.
I think this is the only position it's a coin toss, really, to be honest, at this stage, because I do agree Juranovic, beg your pardon, is number one, probably the most likely to start. But I do feel that the manager, for example, I think Greg Taylor starts. Sorry to skip ahead, but I feel Greg Taylor will start over Bernabei because it's Flag Day as well, and it is the new season, and it is a bit of an event as much as it is. Like McGregor says, as soon as the flag's unfurled, new season starts. Forget what happened yesterday, but Taylor did help us win the league. It was a big part of it, and the same can be said. Ralston was probably definitely the most improved player last year. So it wouldn't surprise me if the manager did say, Ralston, you can have Flag Day, and you can start. So I think that's maybe the only one I'm not too sure about. Not too sure about, but if there wasn't Juranovic, it wouldn't really surprise me.
In terms of the left back as well, I think Bernabei's still getting up to speed with the way the system works, and that's something, I've spoken countless times about Ange Postecoglou, and it's all about a system. You seen that from the Bodo Glimt game. Probably what we were trying to do in terms of the system was right, but we just didn't have the personnel to do
Yeah.
it. I know they get quite a decent result during the week there against Linfield. What a hammer in that is 8-0. I thought we were poor against them. But yeah, I think the system's a big part of what Ange Postecoglou emphasises, works on with his players. Bernabeu will get up to that standard, I know you said last week he's one of these players that excites Celtic fans, absolutely. But I think just Greg Taylor, everything he contributed last season, and just at this point in time, to me, I know Ange Postecoglou will be ruthless with players. I've read countless stuff. Scott McDonaldson, he was his, basically his star man, had a stinker and he dropped him for a final at kind of Australian youth, national youth
Yeah, yeah.
level. So, he is ruthless, but I think this
Definitely.
one, for me, it'll be Juranovic, Taylor. Centre half, we've learned that Moritz James is actually probably going to now miss out. He's got a knock. So, there's no real debate about that. It's going to be Cameron Carter-Vickers and Stephen Welsh in there, isn't it?
Yeah. And again, the manager really likes Welsh. So I think when you get young players that have a manager behind them, when they do get these infrequent opportunities, like an injury situation or maybe a suspension further on in the season or whatever, it will be really interesting to see how they take it, because they should be confident. It's not like sometimes when young players get thrown in, you've never heard of them, they've never played with the first team, whatever. But Welsh, I think he got the club's Young Player of the Year last year. I think that award was probably decided by the manager. The manager really liked him. And and playing next to Carter Vickers. I actually think Welsh is more Carter Vickers kind of understudy, if you like. So any time he can have on the pitch with him, I think is good service for Welsh. And let's just hope he puts in a good performance on Sunday.
Yeah. Was maybe Abada not Young Player of the Year last year? I think
Oh,
Abada got it. He did.
maybe an
Abada
academy
definitely
or
won it.
something.
It'll probably be Academy. It'll be
Yeah.
Academy. Yeah. But I think that's an important point too, because thinking back to Stephen Welsh kind of first coming into the Celtic team, he looked at the senior beside Shane Duffy when he was playing beside him a lot of the
Yeah.
time, and even which I think for his development wasn't great, that he was getting put under so much pressure and try to, lead from the back through the games where he's got a senior international captain beside him. But I think he's much more suited to probably being that understudy to Cameron Carter-Vickers. And I've got every confidence in Stephen Wilson domestic football for Celtic. I know people have been going on about the move to Toulouse and whatnot, but I think it's a really hard seller, and he's always somebody who's happy to be a part of the squad. I think he's probably still got a bit to go in terms of his development. And, again, he proves himself as an important player, because if you didn't have him and you'd maybe shifted him out and loaned to Toulouse or whatever, you'd be Cameron Carter-Vickers and, Christopher Julian and Sunday. And I don't think just everything that's going around that situation with the lack of game time, just in terms of being out for so long as well, just probably wouldn't happen. So Julian likely to be in the bench, but Welsh and Vickers to start for Celtic, absolutely. The midfield, I think, might give Ange Postecoglou a wee bit of a headache. We've got that
Last
much
minute.
quality in there, and it's somebody's going to miss out, and then when Aaron Moy probably gets up to speed, two people are going to miss out. Would be in midfield apart from Callum McGregor, because I think Callum McGregor's always a sticker in midfield, as we said earlier.
Of course. I think he goes with Rio and O'Reilly, to be honest. I think that's his number one midfield, is those three. And again, obviously we've heard over the last couple of days as well that Gucci's got some sort of unknown back injury.
Yeah, he's got an injury, yeah.
How severe or whatever. But, I think, so the midfield, I don't think Moyes anywhere near starting. I don't think he would start McCarthy, of course. And then, so the real question is just really Turnbull or O'Reilly. Pardon me, sorry. The real question becomes just Turnbull or Rio for me, just the way I see the rotations with the manager. It might be O'Reilly or Turnbull, that might be the variation, but I think it will be O'Reilly and Rio that go in midfield. And I seen somebody on Twitter, I can't remember who it was that said it, but I am definitely stealing it. And it was they're calling Rio Hatate the Japanese Modric. I mean, you see those Norwich highlights, man. It's not a bad shout.
Yeah, no, he was absolutely outstanding. If he's the Japanese Modric, I think that makes Callum McGregor the Scottish Pirlo. So I'm quite up for that. Absolutely, I'll go for that. So yeah, no, he was absolutely outstanding. But again, Turnbull came on at the weekend. He took his goal absolutely superb. It was a great strike to get it out his feet and stick it into the net. So again, though, these players will be impactful coming off the bench, and that's something that we needed. We could see going through that kind of first part of last season that when you looked at the bench, there wasn't a lot of options to come off it. So if
Yep.
it's not working, you've got options there and you can turn to them, which I think is vitally important for Celtic. And then up front, to me, it's a no-brainer. It's Maeda, Jota, and Kyogo, which we only caught glimpses of last season just due to Kyogo's injury, obviously being out so long. But I think that was first kind of used up at Dingwall last year in the 2-0 game, and Kyogo got in his goal sheet, so did Jota, and we were unlucky probably not to be 3 or 4-0 up at half time there. I think these three going forward are a defence's nightmare.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, with the kind of party atmosphere we'll have as well, that a lot of these guys are, like I was saying, they're international quality. So these kind of events, big players always rise to them. We normally, Celtic fans, associate big nights with obviously the floodlights been on. But for these guys, let's just, don't get me wrong, I know Maeda won a league before coming here and whatever, but let's call a spade a spade. How many footballers win, like you're talking about McGregor's honours earlier on? That's unusual. Footballers don't win that much stuff typically. So getting to enjoy 60,000 people, flag unfurling, we're champions of the league, we've got Champions League coming. I expect them to get their tail feathers out and get some galazos going.
Yeah, I would just wouldn't fancy any of them going full steam at me because that would just be a nightmare. And Jota was retiring people in pre-season last week in both games against Norwich and Blackburn. So yeah, all three of them. And again, that misses out a guy like Yakimakis, who was so important for Celtic last season, but coming off the bench can be impactful for Celtic this season. And there will be rotation in that squad. I don't doubt it at all this season because when you're competing in so many different tournaments, you know there's an expectation to win. I think that the first kind of one that stands out for me in that is we go up to Dingwall in the League Cup on the Wednesday night with the first derby game on the Saturday, and then our match day one of the Champions League, and to compete in all three of them and try and win every game, which is what Ange Postecoglou will be looking to do. You need to have a strong squad, and I think we certainly do have that at this point in time.
100%. I'm just actually having a look at the head-to-heads and stuff like that. Jota's got 3 goals in 3 games against Aberdeen, so he is, you definitely don't want him running at you on Sunday, I'll tell you that, because he loves Aberdeen already. I think Kyogo's got 2 goals as well. McGregor got 1 last year. It's something like that. Oh no, Jota's actually got 4 and 3. I beg your pardon. So yeah, he loves playing Aberdeen.
Yeah, if anybody's fond of a
anytime
or a bet or whatever, I'm sure they'll probably be putting that on after hearing that. But yeah, it's a great record. We'll go to those games last season because this is going to be, we don't want to become the Aberdeen podcast here, but this is going to be a completely different Aberdeen side that we're going up against. Obviously, Stephen Glass was in there last year with their former captain Scott Brown up there as his assistant, and it didn't work out at all. And it just shows you that, sometimes these projects, if you'll call it that, just don't work out. Obviously, Stephen coming over from America, he played in Scotland, he did a fairly decent career here. Scott, a serial winner. I think Aberdeen fans thought that he would probably try and raise the standards of the club, and it just didn't work out for whatever reason was round about him. There's obviously still some players from the core of that team is going to be playing under Jim Goodwin, who did extremely well with St Mirren last season. Probably the reason why St Mirren finished so high up the table was due to the results he'd got early on before Stephen Robinson even arrived there. They don't look too great a side, St Mirren this season. I'd be quite worried if I was a Saints fan for what they've got there and just under Robinson. But yeah, back to Aberdeen. I think they're going to be decent this season. I know they've played lesser opposition in the League Cup. They're going to be without Liam Scales on Sunday, but I think this will be a tough test for Celtic, and I'm just kind of glad that it's when we're going up against Aberdeen at first, it's at Celtic Park rather than up at Pittodrie, because I think that would be really, really difficult.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm just having a kind of look over like their squad and stuff over pre-season. I think Liam Scales will be a big miss for them. I've seen Jim Goodwin saying as much. And one of
the new Alec McLeish, which is a bit far-fetched, I think, after, 3 or 4 League Cup games, but they're getting quite excited, the old Dons. I know they don't win anything, so I think it's fair enough to get excited, but
I'm a big fan of Scales. I like him,
Yeah, I think he's a good player.
I think he'll be a big miss. I think Lewis Ferguson, of course, they're still, and obviously I know Scott Brown wasn't there terribly long, but like you say, he is a winner, he's a presence. So having Ferguson and Brown out of there, like also a new manager, they will be a little bit unknown. We don't really know how they'll play, and you can guarantee Goodwin and the leaders in that changing room, whoever they might be, will be saying no one's talking about us. Everyone's talking about the Celtic party. We're coming to crash it, and they'll just be keeping their head down and just been focused on disrupting the party and disrupting the noise. So as much as as much as we're talking about all the good stuff that we've got to be excited about, we're not playing a gimme of a team. They will be capable. And Ross McCrory, by the way, like this is just somebody I've been following for this season for fantasy football, but he's on some form in that League Cup. He's got like 4 or 5 goals. I know it's lower league opposition, but their midfield is kind of younger, and who knows how it will shape up with him and Barron in there. I think we're going to win. Right, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's going to be 5-0 or anything mental.
No, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion at all. As I say, I think they're going to be pretty decent this season. I don't expect Aberdeen to have as poor a season as they did last year. I think they'll be a lot more settled. And Jim Goodwin's been really, really, quick. And I think he's did well in the transfer market up until now. That the squad looks a lot stronger. But Lewis Ferguson, I think, will be a miss. He's always been the danger man. I think it's because Aberdeen get so many penalties against themselves that Lewis took them, and he always used to score from them. And it'd be interesting to see how he gets on in Bologna. Obviously, Aaron Hickey made that move over there. You see where he's went now with Brentford in the Premier League. So it'll be interesting to see how he progresses over there. But I think he will be a miss for Aberdeen this season. It's just whether they can replace those goals and everything that Ferguson kind of gave their team. But just to kind of look at that, the first game last season was that tough test that I spoke about. We went up there first last season, game at Pittodrie, which is a game I thought turned it all around. Kyogo and Jota, I think I'm right in saying, but the ones with the goals about it, I think it kind of hit off Kyogo's knee or something, or his back, and it went into the net. I feel that was his chest. It was his chest. That was it. The ball came in and just kind of chased it into the net. So that was a big win. And then the game at Celtic Park, 2-1. Callum McGregor's backside was the winning goal that day.
Oh yeah.
Again, it's they all count. And then the game up in Aberdeen in February, 3-2, which was a bit nervy towards the end, but it was important that we got that really quick response back. And they're always a difficult side to go and play against. They will be a challenge this season. All of those games last season were tight, but we came out on top of them. And I think, in the grand scheme of things, teams like your Aberdeen and Hearts, if you can go there, Easter Road too, they'll kind of maybe be where the league maybe is won, rather than looking at derby games, because the record at Easter Road up until last season in the league was woeful, but we hadn't won there, I think, since 2014. And that was one of the nights, Quinny, that I thought, I think we can maybe do this season, because we're getting, all these kind of hoodoos off our back and going and doing it. And, beating Aberdeen up there twice, winning at Celtic Park, I think those games are really, really important, just in the course of the whole season.
I agree. That's kind of along the same lines of what I was thinking about with the Rangers, because of like the kind of standard that some of the players are bringing in, say like these kind of mid-level championship or top line, sometimes they might rock up and they think, we're going to beat Kilmarnock. They go down to Rugby Park and they don't really know what they're in for. Or, I'm using Kilmarnock as just the first team off the top of my head. Whereas, like, as I say, I don't think our players are going to do that. And I was looking at the Aberdeen game there, the first one at home, we won 2-1. If you look at the 3 subs in that game, the 3 subs were Forrest for Abada, Mikey Johnson for Jota, and a Jetty for Furuhashi. So those will not be the 3 subs. We will never make those 3 subs again.
Especially not Albion Agate.
So I just think, and again, like you're saying, I remember a lot of Celtic games last year where we were really good quality, attacked for fun, really exciting to watch. But then it was like, Beaton's coming on, or James McCarthy's coming on, or we're going to play Adam Montgomery left forward, and it was all these square pegs and round holes. And I know we've had some knocks with Gucci and with Jens, but failing anything kind of snowballing there, like we're so robust top to bottom that that's probably the most exciting part of the league, is like we can go into every game like really excited. Number one, what's the team going to be like? What's it going to look like? And then we're still, we will discover through this season what Ange season 2 is all about, and I think there'll be a few surprises along the way, in a good way, in terms of maybe some different combinations. On a kind of little side note, sorry, I'm really bad for this, Declan, but like one thing I'm interested in seeing this season is we've still not seen Giakoumakis and Kyogo on the pitch together ever, and surely there has to be a situation where we see that at some point, even if it's against Ray Rovers or something.
Yeah, I know Kyogo played a lot of football in Japan off that left-hand side, so it might be something the manager looks at. I know, obviously, in his first derby game last season, he said he should have played him through the middle, but it might be something that he potentially looks at in some games. I know sometimes even that we've went to kind of 4-2-4 if we're chasing a game too. Yep. So, yeah, I think it's really important that we keep those two guys fit, and it's an area of the pitch that I would still like just a wee bit of covering just in case. I know we've got a bad that can come in off the wing, my that can play through the middle, but I'd be worried. I would be worried if we lose one of them early on in the season, because then you're just kind of steering your way through with one striker.
Would you have been happier if we kept Doak and he was that guy?
Probably
Bearing in mind
not.
he's 17 or something.
No,
Okay.
probably not, because even with Ben Doak, probably it's guys like Joey Dawson and even Johnny Kenny that is there that people would probably say, well, they're probably at the same standard of level that he is at that age. So no, I'd rather just bring in somebody that's kind of oven ready, if you will, to go in there. It's maybe got a wee bit of experience that can score goals. But again, bringing in somebody like that and telling them
They're so
probably
far down the
third
pecking
choice
order.
striker, it's a hard sell for anybody, So it just depends. And if you went out and you bought somebody a striker for £3 million, you'd expect them to score goals, and if they don't,
There's trouble.
the finger gets pointed. So yeah, it's a tough sell. But yeah, that's a bit in Aberdeen. It wasn't too bad.
It's kind of a bit Aberdeen.
In terms of the whole picture, obviously we're going to get VAR in after the World Cup. We've got Nick Walsh, one of our favourite referees for the game, on Sunday. I think the only kind of positive I'm taking out of this, Quinny, is we won't ever get Bobby Madden again.
Yeah. It was so funny seeing a lot of the kind of, I can't remember what would the word be for it, but all the kind of meme tweets that were going out before the UEFA Cup final. Everyone was like, oh, Bobby Madden's been pictured on the train and all that, and they were taking his tweets or whatever and just like changing the background and putting them with Rangers fans and all that. So yeah, I think it'll be really good to not have that kind of jeopardy for the dodgy games, Hearts away, Aberdeen away, because when you've maybe got that 5% of sometimes you won't get that niggling free kick in the middle of the park and then it allows a counter attack, or you don't get a penalty, or your guy gets a yellow when he shouldn't. Taking that stuff out of the equation a wee bit more potentially, with him being gone, and hopefully if VAR does its kind of job, should be class.
Are you the same opinion as me that it should have been in at the very start of the season? Because I think it's a bit of a farce that it's coming in so late, and I know there's all this nonsense about funding and putting it in and whatnot, but I think for some teams it might maybe finish lower down the league. I'm not talking about ourselves and our competitors up the top end of the table, which will have an impact on, I don't doubt. But for some teams who might end up going down, if there's a few decisions that could have changed that around, and you've had no VAR in early on in the season, that's where the finger's going to be pointed at right away.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely a shout for that kind of sport integrity element. The competition rules should be what they are at the beginning and kind of run through. So that's my kind of opinion on it, to be honest with you. I understand logistics and finances aren't always ideal in an ideal world, and if it's ready by January, why wait till next year? Let's get it out now. I can put myself in those shoes. I can imagine that, but there would be so much retroactive refereeing, because it'll be like the first round of game. It's like an even portion of the season will have it and won't have it. So yeah. There will be people that will go, oh well, if we had it 2 games earlier, that penalty didn't happen and he isn't suspended, and then. So they're just opening themselves up for criticism, and they're just crossing their fingers. It's not Celtic and Rangers that come for them. If it's St Mirren, they won't care. If it's Kilmarnock, they won't care. But if it's us, then they might have a bit of a problem on their hands because there's just more of us, Celtic and Rangers fans. So yeah, I think that's the gamble they're taking.
I think it should be a kind of a level playing field from the off, and I think, as you say, if you're setting the goals of the league at the start of the season, that's what they should be, consistent throughout. Which probably. In the ideal world, if you weren't going to get it at the start, a lot of people would probably say, well, just wait till the next campaign kicks off, because even though it might help some, it won't help all, and you're going to be in a situation where you're going to get folk moaning. Listen, I'm all for having VAR in Scottish football. My only concern is the people who are controlling it are the same part-time refs who make bad calls throughout the season and are terribly inconsistent, I think, in the refereeing. That's always my biggest issue with them, Quinny, is they're terribly inconsistent, and that goes from watching Celtic versus Motherwell to maybe sticking on another Sky Sports game, whether it's Dundee United and Hibs or something, and thinking, well, you're giving that as a foul, why is that not a foul type of thing? So
something that just occurred to me there when we were talking, sorry, is like, we've not had any VAR in Scottish football at all, have we? Not even in the cups and stuff?
Nope,
so like, if we are getting it halfway, it'd probably been much smarter for them to go, what we'll do is we'll trial it from January onwards in the knockout rounds of the Scottish Cup or something, and then it'll all be ready by next season. We'll have worked out any kinks and any bugs, and we're ready to go. Because if they've not even bloody tested it yet, there will be kinks and bugs. So I've seen this
Absolutely.
stuff all across the world getting rolled out. Some countries do it really well, some countries make it worse.
And Scottish football refereeing doesn't ever particularly have a great track record of doing things well. And that, by the way, that isn't even just from a Scottish football fan's perspective, because if you see some of the guys that have went away, we won't name names, but when they've, refereed a Champions League game, I think there was one in Turkey a few years back, and a certain teacher that was refereeing the game, and he made an absolute howler of a decision. And I think he's probably banned now if he going to Marmaris on holiday if he ever tries to get in.
There was a Scottish referee last year. He got a Champions League and Europa League game. I can't remember who it was, but I watched it and it was a car crash. Like, I cannot remember even for the life of me who it was. I don't think it was Madden. I think it was the other one. I forget their names now, but it was an absolute car crash of a game. It was a quite high profile, like quarter final or something like that. And but I make you quite right. The main problem with VAR, just to kind of touch on that wee thread that I dropped out there for anyone listening, but like the main problem with VAR, or the main thing that with VAR that I think is only really useful for Scotland, is the main thing everyone kind of talks about it. It's the clear and obvious, because all the stuff we've got with referees is all stuff that's subjective and up to conjecture. All VAR's going to do is the clear and obvious stuff. That is a penalty. Stop kidding us on. Stop cheating. Kind of vibe. It's not to re-referee the game. So I'm hoping maybe that kind of lackadaisical attitude that the referees in this country have actually works towards VAR, because they don't want to get involved too much. They're just like, oh, well, that's an easy one. We'll make that call. Because that's how they do it in MLS in America. They don't, it has to be obvious for them to do something, and it works quite well there.
Right. That's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But, no VAR on Sunday, just Nick Walsh, which, if Celtic are on, hopefully Celtic are on song, we wouldn't need to have any concerns or issues about. Just to kind of go back to, we were talking about Moritz Jensen and Yusuke Deguchi. Carl Starfelt is a name who we miss speaking about there, and so integral to Ange Postecoglou last season. When do you hopefully think you'll come back? Because obviously we know that he wasn't in a stookie or anything. We saw that clip on his Instagram of him down on a beach somewhere, kicking the ball about. So he's obviously probably been in training. What do you think about the type of game that Ange will look to bring him back in for? Because it's a bit tricky. You've got this game, and then you're about to Dingwall and stuff. And listen, every confidence that Carl Starfelt would come back in and be absolutely fine. I know Cameron Carter-Vickers very, very well, but it's disappointing for him that he's missed out in this pre-season. But yet again, he missed pre-season last year and was important to Celtic.
I'd probably go out on a limb, and at this stage, I'd probably guess you will start to see him again come Kilmarnock away. I think the manager and the club's rehab plan for him will be centred around him being a sound starting player for the Rangers game on the 3rd of September. So maybe he's on the bench come Aberdeen, maybe he's on the bench come Ross County. Come Kilmarnock away, I would expect to see his name around the team. We've then got Hearts at home.
That's a definite one, I think, for him, possibly.
Yeah. And then that's a good, maybe he's on the bench, doesn't come off it for Kilmarnock, but then come Hearts, he's kind of integrated. Dundee United to really shake the cobwebs off. Who knows against Ross County, and then you've got Rangers. So I think we don't want to be going into Rangers with Starfelt being iffy. Is he fit? Is he back up to speed? So I think the manager has that in his head with Starfelt. Doesn't want to rush him and break him, and equally wants to have him ready. So come Rangers, says, Starfelt's playing well. No, we're not even thinking about it or talking about it.
Yeah, and again, it's crazy that you just kind of go from the lull of those friendly games and right away you're back into this, and you're already looking that far ahead to those games. And again, that's going to be a tricky one, because listen, I know it's not Steve Clark in charge of Kelly anymore, and we had those experiences under Brendan Rodgers until Bruni broke the duck down there with that late goal. But Kilmarnock's another team, not to look too far ahead. Derek McInnes here just now, he always made it difficult for Celtic. He got a few, notable victories for his cell against Celtic. So I think even looking forward to that game is going to be tough. It's not going to be easy at all, the start Celtic have got here. But it's just back to what we were saying at the top of the show before we kind of close up here, is just focusing ourselves, playing our own game, and taking it one game at a time, which I think Celtic did particularly well last season. And it's just about continuing that mentality in there. The culture in the dressing room is good. We know what it's like to win. We know the expectations of the football club. And it's just about going forward together. And there's a lot of excitement to look forward to with that. But just taking it one game at a time with players. Whoever comes back from injury, if you lose somebody from injury, it's about somebody else stepping up and showing to the manager that as a squad we're ready to go forward. take back the league, because the league again this season, Quinn, is absolutely massive. If you win the league this season, you're back straight into those Champions League group stages, and what a that's just a carrot and a sting for any player. I think after they'll get the taste of the Champions League right away with Celtic.
Big time. And it's this kind of evolution that we're maybe on the cusp of is something I've been waiting for Celtic to do really since around that kind of Martin O'Neill era, is like really take our place among Europe as being like a credible European outfit. Like as much as we know how big Celtic, everyone who's involved in the club, of course, knows the history, the stature and whatever. But like just to be real, like for the last 10 years, we've not made a dent, maybe even the last 12, it's been some nice results.
Not won a knockout tie after Christmas since 2004, which is crazy for a club of Celtics.
A couple of draws with Man City's fun, beating Leipzig in the Europa League once in a while, or these things are fine and nice, but we've not made a dent in so long, and the way evolution in the kind of European landscape has went is you need to have a presence in there to attract players and to sell players for good money. If you're not in that environment, like we've seen in the past, even compared to this season, like we've been able to attract like real quality, like real distinct quality. And we will be able to sell them for much more money than what we did. Like even Edward and Tierney, I know we get decent fees for them, but if these guys are Champions League group stage players 2 years in a row and the sort of records that we're knocking out, then that can be the real catalyst, the real catapult. So then, and again, not to get too far away from ourselves again, this is just a bad habit I've got. But you kind of fast forward to maybe like towards the end of Postecoglou's tenure, and we're probably at that stage seen amongst the European football community in the same breath as, like the Ajaxes and the Leipzigs and Salzburgs and all these kind of people, and that's where we really should be, is in the conversation of European teams that are effective.
Yeah, but we hope so. Ange Postecoglou is going to become the very first Australian manager to manage the Champions League too, which is quite
cool.
It's quite cool for him, and I'm sure he'll take that with great pride and not want to kind of damage that reputation, because almost guys like him are carrying the torch, I think, a bit for Australian football at this point in time, in European football. But football in terms of Oz is not the main sport. I think it's the third or fourth probably most popular sport over in Australia. So, carrying that torch forward, I'm sure on the first Champions League night it'll be colossal, the Australian press coverage, because it was in the last day of the season. There was absolutely loads of different media outlets there to cover their man, because Ange Postecoglou is their man, and I think that story is also kind of, it's nice for us to see how that progresses too. And on the greatest stage of all, it's going to be really, really interesting. For me, Quinny, it's just about Celtic kind of getting their gauge in Europe. I think in the next few years, it's important that we bring in the finance to help boost the squad compared to the money that we obviously bring in Scottish football, and get to the level where we feel comfortable at. And if that's, playing Champions League a couple of seasons in a row, avoiding the scalps, but trying to get results, dropping into that Europa League and having a good go and getting a bit further on than we have done, that's exactly what I want. I know a lot of people last season were saying, European football's not a priority and blah blah blah. It should be for Celtic, and as we continue to develop under Ange Postecoglou, if you a lot of people who'd maybe given last season a free hit, there's no free hit this season. We want to see progress under Ange, and I'm sure he wants to see progress too, because, as I say, Champions League is absolutely massive, and my target is for Celtic to go in there, give teams a good go. I think they'll definitely score goals in the competition, but it's then maybe looking towards that third place finish. Can we get the results against whoever's our main challengers for that spot, and then try and get into the Europa League, and then go and make a bit of an impact in there, because we've seen other teams do it out with Scotland, and there's no reason why we can't have a decent run in Europe this season.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And the thing I love about Postecoglou coming into this campaign as well is he is like living his dream, really like being, for him, you hear the interviews he's done, and you can put yourself in his shoes dead easy. Australian guy, it's the third or fourth biggest sport in his native land. He coaches there, he plays there, then goes to Japan. These are not connections that should end up like career path-wise taking you to Champions League group stages. So he will be pinching himself every way through this journey. And he, if no matter what the draw is, he will be up for it, and that's a big part of it. Because I've seen Celtic, campaigns where we get into the group stages and straight away it is like, can we get 4 points? And sometimes that's realistic and fair enough, right? You've got to work in reality, but sometimes these actions work against you.
The last group is probably the one you looked at that, and we won the game that you wouldn't expected us to have won when we went over to Belgium and won 3-0. and then with the disappointment of getting beat 1-0 at Celtic Park, and that's the kind of ones that, as you say, if you lower your barometer, it doesn't happen because after winning 3-0 in Belgium, you'd have expected Celtic to win at Celtic Park, and even though it wouldn't have really affected the group because Bayern Munich and PSG were always probably likely to go through, you're still getting another victory. You're sending your fans home happy, and that game was actually the last time we'd heard Champions League music in the Champions League at Celtic Park, December 2017, until Trophy Day when the team walked out of it. So that's quite crazy. It's a long, long time ago.
Aye. That doesn't feel like. Oh, it does feel like it in some ways, and doesn't
Five
in
years ago,
others.
nearly 5 years ago.
That's
So
fair.
thankfully, we don't have to have that worry. And as I said at the top, but we've not had these qualifiers that we're grueling through and worrying about, we're able to sit back and wait. And I think that Ross County in the League Cup is going to be the first midweek game that we've got all season, and then the following week is the Champions League. So that's really, really exciting. That'll be a really good week. Hopefully, to be a Celtic fan, if you can go and book your place in the quarter final of the League Cup, win the first derby game, and then get off to a flyer in the Champions League, I think we'd all be cloud nine, wouldn't we?
Big time, for sure.
So yeah, but we'll look forward to that. Quinny, thanks as always for joining me. Just to say to the
Pleasure.
listeners, if you've enjoyed watching the podcast, we're hopefully going to be doing these a lot more frequently. Please do like the video, and if you subscribe to the channel, you can win a framed Ange Postecoglou print. So listen, it's free to subscribe. You might win something nice that you can hang up wherever, the bedroom, the hallway, show it off to your pals if they're coming round. Get it up because I think the big man's deserving a place in anyone's wall. So please do like, subscribe. We'll be back, and I hope everybody enjoys the game.